Hey everybody, this is Steve. We are about to go through and do a complete update of INAV 3.0 on a flight controller. It has INAV 2.6 on it. So I'm going to take you through the entire process. Some of the screens you won't be able to see, but I will explain what I'm doing. I'm going to move pretty quickly here because this can get pretty tedious and boring if I don't move quickly. So right away you see I make sure it's on the right port and I hit connect, and instantly you see that I'm in the CLI tab. That's because I have the INAV 3.0 configurator, but it doesn't really matter because what I want to do is I want to type diff/all diff-all, okay? And then I'm going to say save to file. You might not be able to see this, but I save it to a file known as flight controllers, and I have them broken down by various flight controllers. So this one is going to go onto the Omnibus F4V3, and I put it under the name of this, which is, I don't know if I even named this one yet. That's how good I am at this whole thing. I'm going to call this one Rosetta. So I just create a new directory, and I call this Rosetta. And see, it's an S800. So hopefully you can see that. And I'll hit save. Just in case you can't see it, I'm going to go in there and I just click save. Then I go in here and I click clear the history, and I do DUMP. Alright, so there's important information that's really in the diff-all file. What the dump does is it has every single setting, including the ones that were default that came with flight controller firmware. Again, I just hit save to file. I'm going to save it in the same location, and we're good. Now, I have everything saved, so I can go back and I can pretty much reinstall this flight controller with INAV 2.61 on there without a single worry. I just reflash INAV 2.61 on there and just load the diff-all files, and it's good to go. Let's get back where I'm at right now. I'm going to show you a couple commands. The first one is called status. At the very bottom here, you'll see that I'm looking. It says that the gyro is okay, accelerometer is okay, barometer is okay, GPS is okay. So everything is fine according to this. Now, the next one is a very dangerous one, and you only want to do this when you're serious, and that is to type the word DEFAULTS. That's defaults. And right away, we are back to absolute nothing. So, yeah, so what you're going to see if I do a DIF all now, there's very little in here. That's because I went through and I erased everything. Okay, now I'm going to type DFU. Sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. We'll see if it works. And I'm saying no, it did not work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is close this down. And there's this little button you have to push on here, which I'm not a big fan of, but I've done this a million times, so I'm pretty used to doing this now. It's on the Matex. They're really easy to find. On these little omnibus boards, they're very small. Okay, I got it first time. So you see how it says DFU up here? It means I'm in a different mode. I go to firmware flasher. First thing I do is switch on show unstable releases. Then I go to the board. Now this is kind of an older board. Not a lot of people use these anymore. I like these because they're cheap, and if they break, I don't cry so much. I call the Omnibus F4V3 to make sure you get the right board. Then you go down to choose the firmware, and that's INAV 3.0. This is release candidate 1. So, yeah, so we don't know how good this is yet. I mean, there might be some issues, but I'm putting on planes that I am comfortable enough to crash, to say the least. Okay, just type flash, or hit the flash button, and you can see it says erasing. And what it's doing now is just clearing out the memory. And we are going to wait for it to start writing the firmware. So release candidate 1 is our first attempt, or the developer's first attempt to get INAV 3.0 out to us, and we're looking to see if there's any bugs. And so far I've been monitoring the GitHub page to see if there's any major bugs, things we call showstoppers, where it's like, oh my god, don't use this ever again, that there's a big problem with it. And I have not seen any showstoppers. I've seen a couple issues with crossfire modules and a couple OSD issues, but nothing, that would say, gives me a warning to not use this. Okay, so now I am going to unplug the flight controller, and then you hear the beeps, and then I'm going to plug it back in. I'm going to wait to see up here if this changes, and if it doesn't change, that means I have to close the program down. That means I have to stop recording. Go to welcome. Let's see. I don't want to connect. Here we go. We want to wait for this. There we go. It's going to work. Connect. Okay, so first screen we see here is where you get to choose your plane. And now there's a very bottom here. It says keep current settings, not recommended. And that's the one I pick. And I go to CLI and I type DEFAULTS. Defaults one more time. Okay. And then what it's going to do is it's going to bring me back to where we were before. Okay. Now, this is going on a delta wing because the S800 is a delta wing, and called an airplane without a tail. So right away we see something. So this looks like the old screen. You'll see it come back here in a second. Looks like the old screen. You don't have Darren Line's cool new graphic for the airplane up yet. And so you're like, hey, what's the deal? Well, we're going to get to that in a second. I'll show you how we fix that, how we get to Darren's cool thing, graphic. Calibration. This is not calibrated. And I can go through and I can calibrate it. But I've already done that. And nothing else. The mixture is not set up. You can see there's nothing on here. So I'm going to go to CLI. Now, off screen, I'm going to do something, which is I'm going to go into that folder once again, and I'm looking for what I just saved. So that's why you kind of want to keep these things, keep a good record of where they're at, so you can find them right away. And I called it Rosetta. So right away I found it, and I'm going in, and I found, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a bunch of files. The first one I'm going to do is, there's these things called set ACC gain. They're almost to the bottom of the file known as the Diff file. And I'm grabbing all that, and I'm going upwards, and I'm grabbing all the OSD layouts. Okay, I think I got them all. Hit copy, and then I go back onto here, and I hit paste. And right away, everything is starting to look really good. Okay, so you see OSD 1, OSD layout 2, OSD layout 3. Okay, and then these are all my configuration files. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, as long as I'm at it, is I'm going to go up a little bit further, and there's these things called aux, AUX, as in for auxiliary. So the pound aux is what they're under. I'm going to copy that, and from that file, hit paste. You can see all the aux files. I'm pointing to it like you can see my finger, but no. I should maybe use the mouse cursor. Here we go. All these right here. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. All right, now let me show you what I just did. All that good information, like I'm not a big fan of having to turn the flight controller over a bunch of times. So calibration, those ACC files there was like 6 to 8 lines. I copied them over and right away put it in, so the calibration is correct. And when it comes down to the other thing that I did was, if you go down to modes, these are all the modes that Darren Line set up in the group build for OpenTX. So they're all here. So those two are done. That's a lot of work right there. So let's go through and kind of just finish this build. We're done with calibration. Let's go to mixture really quick. Okay, so this is a flying wing. And you can say load and apply. Now I'm going to say load mixer. And what happens is that it has motor 1 and motor 2. There's only one motor on the S800, so I'm going to delete the second motor. And that's about the only thing I'm going to change about that. And then go down here to save and reboot. And we're done with the mixer tab. Next one is the output tab, and this is for your motors and servos. So first thing I do is turn it on. Default is a standard, but I'm using one shot. I'm using BL Heli, so one shot, 125. I know I should use D shot, but I've been using one shot for a while, and it's always worked well for me. Everything else looks good. Usually this needs to be reversed right here. One of the servos is usually wrong, so for me it's usually servo 3. I'll hit save. Actually save and reboot, because that really does save everything. Okay, now I'm going to go down to the next screen here, which is the preset screen, and I'm going to talk about what I think this does. So what I think the preset screen does was what we did when we first plugged in the flight controller. It helps you pick out which one, either airplane with tail or without tail. So since we've already done it, I'm going to skip it. Now ports. I'm trying to remember. I believe that this flight controller, the Omnibus, is kind of funky because it's older. Uses serial RX on 6, and then GPS is on 3. And I hit save and reboot. Okay. And we're going to go down to configuration. There's actually a lesson here now than ever before. So I'm going to discuss a couple things. Okay, so right away you see a bunch of these different things like the barometer and the accelerometer. And you can see the accelerometer is a gyro, seems to be working. The accelerometer, wait, that's not right. The gyro's working, the accelerometer working, the barometer right here is working. I really screwed that one up. Anyway, everything is blue, so it means it's in a healthy state. Now, I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to GPS. I'm going to enable that. I use these really common VN 220s, and those are U-Block 7. Ground assistance, since I live in North America, I'm going to turn that on. GPS, we're going to use the Galileo satellites. Okay, time zone offset. So this is where you kind of have to know what time zone you live in. And I live in Pacific Standard Time, PST. And if you look on the, if you were to Google this and what time zone is PST, it's Greenwich Mean Time, GMT. It's a -8. So we're 8 hours off of basically what the UK is. So what you have to do is you have to record it in minutes in this screen right here. So it's -8 times 60, which is -480. Thank you very much. Automatic daylight savings time, I'm in the USA. All right, I'm going to name the plane. This one I'm going to call Rosetta. Save and reboot. And I think I got everything. Okay, since I'm doing this all by hand, I am going to go down to fail safes here, and I need to turn on return to home is what my fail safe should be. Save and reboot. Oh, I should show you. I forgot to mention, after we did all that good stuff, I went off of memory, but you can see right up here that the GPS signal comes up. So GPS is now showing that blue, so it's working fine. And this is Darren Line's plane. You can see, ooh, look at that. Does that look sexy or what? All right. So, anyways, nice job, Darren. Okay. So we go down to PID tuning. Now, we're not going to touch anything in PID tuning. I'm using defaults, and that's kind of the point. We'll just look at it. These numbers are different than what they used to be in the past, and especially right here. My normal formula was 60 here and 40 here, but I'm going to let this go. The advanced tuning section is, I'll point out one thing that you might, or a couple things you might want to look at here in the future. Since this is brand new, I'm not going to play with a lot of these features, but I like this idea to allow manual throttle control in your navigation settings. So for whatever reason, if you were flying, let's say 3D cruise, you want to turn up your throttle, you can turn that on and you can override the throttle that's automatically set and go a little bit faster. And there's all the return to home settings right here, which are always kind of interesting to play with. Climb regardless of position, sensor health. A lot of cool things. You don't really need to play with them right now. Programming this is something that Darren likes to play with. These are called logical conditions. GVAR global variables. So you put logical conditions in here. It's if A is true, do B, whatever it is. If X is greater than 1, turn on a light. But what Darren has done with this is he has a cool video on showing how to use these so that you can turn the power settings up on your VTX, and which I think is really cool. Okay, receiver. You can see default is PPM, which is, no, we're not using that. So I'm going to go to serial, and I'm going to switch this over to S-Bus. I'm using a XM Plus, so this is not a very sophisticated build, but I do know that on channel 16 is where RSSI is located. And I hit save and reboot. And we're making progress here. Okay, modes tab. I've went over this before. Everything's there. Adjustments. I don't really understand why you need to adjust this, but these are some fine-tuning adjustments you can make. We don't really play with it, or at least I've never played with it. GPS, this is showing when the GPS is plugged in and working. It will start finding satellites. As you can see right here, longitude and latitude. You can't do it where I live because it's not coming up. And it's mainly because we're inside. And well, if I plug the battery in, take it outside, and I'll start finding things. Mission control. This one's new. Okay, this is cool. I like this. OSD is what we will work with, and what I do is I have 4 screens I work with, and I kind of go over them really quickly here. Default layout is pretty much everything that the craft name, shows all these different settings. Not much to look at here. It has satellites, pretty standard stuff. This is absolutely bizarre, and right away we have a problem with 3 of these are on top of each other, so you won't be able to read these. But what happens is all of the things when I first arm a plane, I captured this, at least a couple seconds of this, so I know all my settings as far as roll and pitch and everything else. It's pretty cool to do that. This is where I can see the satellites come up as well, and then as soon as I'm done with this, I go into the next screen, which is, this is my standard flying screen right here. Okay, so there are two clocks here. One is actual, the amount of time you're flying. The other one is the actual time. Now with the time zone set properly, we'll get to the right one. LED strip. This is where you put the LED strip lighting in. I am not working with an LED strip at the moment. Black box is cool. I actually have a card that's ready to go inside the black box. So this is turned on, black box flight recorder. This 1-to-1 is kind of a lot, and it just fills the card up quickly. I move it down to 1/32 and hit save and reboot. And I'm looking off screen here for a second. I'm gonna find something. I'm gonna go back and find, I want to call this, right, there is a couple commands. Alright, one command in particular I'm looking for. Copy. I'm going to CLI command, and this is the command I'm going to put in here. So this is called set stats on, and it did that. So what that does is every time you start up the flight controller, it shows you the total amount of distance, or in either kilometers or miles, that you've flown with this plane. So just type save, and that one's good to go. And as far as I can tell, I mean, I have to plug it all in and start checking it out, but this is pretty much everything. You can see the plane is ready to go. So yeah, there's really nothing that I think I left behind down here. So this is the complete upgrade to INAV 3.0. And I can always go back and look for other things I might have missed along the way, but I have a feeling that this is going to work out just fine. And I do thank you for watching. Hopefully I figured out how to turn this off. And I'm going to hit stop.